suppose I better let people see me. So, so can I say to everyone, usual announcement at the beginning of meetings that I'd remind everyone present that the meeting will be live streamed as well as recorded via the internet and the recording archived for future viewing. Usual process as far as the conduct of the meeting is concerned. If you want to speak, if you can do so, raise your hand in the chat function. If that doesn't work, then just wave wildly and hopefully somebody will see you. If there are any problems, if you use go through the chat function, don't use that for making comments or contributing to the meeting in other ways. If you have any difficulty as far as accessing and contributing is concerned, then certainly turn your camera off, and obviously probably better if everyone mutes unless they are speaking. I think that's covered everything, so I think, Kath, we can start the recording.
The recording's already started, Chair. We usually capture the announcement, so.
Oh, well, there we are then. So glad I got that nearly right then. Okay, then, before we start the meeting, can I welcome a new member to the committee, who I can see in certainly the middle of my screen at the bottom. That's, hope I get the pronunciation right, Rebecca Morteo, who is here as a co-opted member for the Church in Wales. Rebecca, or Becky as I think you prefer, you're the acting diocesan education lead, is that correct?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay, well, welcome.
Thank you.
Obviously, it's whether it's a good time to be joining, I don't know, as this is now the last meeting of this current council, and you may meet a lot of people at this meeting who may not be back in a month or so's time, but we'll do our best not to cause too many problems, hopefully. So I don't know whether it's worth going round who's on the committee just to introduce ourselves to you. It might be a good idea. My name's Gordon Kemp, Councillor Gordon Kemp. I'm the chairman of the Scrutiny Committee. Rhiannon, if you want to go next.
Hi, I'm Rhiannon Birch. I'm vice chair.
Well, everyone else is going to be frightened to say anything now.
Yeah, I'll come in, Chairman, speed it up. Andrew Parker, Independent, Cowbridge.
Jane Norman, Independent, Llantrip Major.
Hi there, I'm... Ooh, sorry, Neil. Hi there, I'm Councillor Stephen Griffiths, County Councillor for the Dennis Powys ward.
Yeah, I'm Neil Thomas. I'm Councillor for St Augustine's ward in Fleurhof.
Hi, I'm Martin Price. I'm the Catholic representative.
Hi, I'm Councillor Sandra Perks from Court Ward.
Hi, I'm Nick Hodges from Barrack in Barry.
I'm Councillor Leighton Rowlands. You can't see me because the internet's rubbish, and I'm the councillor for the Dublin ward in Barry.
I think we've probably gone through all the, oh, hang on. No, so I'm not muted. I think we've gone through all the councillors now. Probably a lot of the officers you will already know. And we do have some guests this afternoon who will obviously introduce themselves in due course. So welcome, and I hope your stay on the committee is a long and fruitful one.
Thank you very much.
Okay, right. Moving along then with the agenda. Agenda item 1, apologies for absence. I'm aware we have Councillor Jarvie. Are there any others?
Mr. Scott, the Welsh Medium representative, has also given his apologies.
Okay, thank you very much. Any others? No. Okay, thank you. Minutes of the meeting, and I'd like to do minutes of the meeting held on the 10th of March. Anyone prepared to
move the minutes?
Yeah.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Okay, thank you. Agenda item 3, to receive any declarations of interest. usually at this point we have silence, and we seem to have silence on this occasion. So take it there are no declarations of interest. So moving along then, agenda item 4, the draft strategic equality plan for schools, which is a reference from the cabinet meeting on the 14th of January. And I think, Martine, you're going to take that.
Yes, I am, Chair. Okay, can I just check you can hear me okay?
I certainly can.
Fabulous, Chair. I'll make a start. I'm Martine Coles, and I'm the Vulnerable Groups Manager of the Vale Glam Morgan Council, and I sit within Learning and Skills. And what I'd like to do this afternoon is take you through the draft schools strategic quality plans. And because I've got notes and the report in front of me, Chair, if there are any questions or comments as I'm speaking, if somebody could just speak up, because I may not be able to see the hands up function. Is that okay, Chair?
That's fine, yeah. But if unless there are particular items that we need to raise, you know, at the point, perhaps we can leave them to the end.
Okay, all right then. Thank you, Chair. All right then. I would like to start by saying thank you very much for the opportunity to ensure that this scrutiny committee can consider the draft school strategic quality plan. And I'm looking forward to your feedback and especially comments and questions as part of the consultation programme. So I wanted to start off by just talking a little bit about why do schools need a template for a strategic quality plan, and in the papers it's Appendix A. So schools need to be more comfortable and confident to demonstrate that the Vale Glam Morgan Council is a diverse and actively anti-racist council, and we want to, as a council, we want to support schools to bridge the gap between policies and guidance, to turn lots of the legislation into what it looks like in the classroom. And we really want to make sure that schools provide meaningful adherence to the public sector equality duty that's specific to Wales. So now we know why we have it. What difference does it make? The difference it can make is that the aim of this plan is to be really explicit in describing what we're doing as a school community to fulfil the duties under the Equality Act. So what we want to support schools with is their public function. So, and this part I am going to read out because I feel that it's quite important that we're very clear and explicit on our aims. So we want to make sure we can support schools to eliminate unlawful discrimination, harassment and victimisation, other conduct that is prohibited under the Equality Act. We want to advance equality of opportunity between people who share a protected characteristic with those that do not. We want to foster good relationships with people who share relevant protected characteristics and those who do not. And we want to have due regard for advancing equality. And we want to remove and minimise disadvantages experienced by people due to their protected characteristic, those that do not. We want to take steps to meet the needs of people with the protected characteristics, and we want to encourage people with protected characteristics to participate in public life and other activity where their participation is low. So we have to do it because it's the law, but I think we have a moral compass to make sure we support schools to do this well. So what happened? How did this plan come into existence? This plan, and it's a phrase that I hear quite a lot, co-construction. This plan is a very long co-constructed piece of work that's taken place over 2 years with a range of stakeholders. And I would say the co-construction has been meaningful because we started off with corporate equalities and working with them to support the council's strategic equality plan. And then we looked at how we can make sure that the equality objectives and keeping up to date with Welsh Government ESTIN guidance from the Equality and Human Rights Commission, that we make sure all of these are aligned for schools, because as you can see from the report on page 3 to 4, there are, and in the background papers, there are many pieces of guidance and legislation for schools to get their head round. So what we wanted to do as part of the consultation process is provide a document, a plan that is meaningful. And one of the parts of the co-construction which I found quite interesting was the engagement process that involved children and their families, especially from the traveller community. because it was on the back of a consultation document from Welsh Government, and what they were very explicit in saying about this plan was that there was many documents about them and their children that weren't accessible, that weren't in what they called plain English, and they said that for this plan to be about them and equality of opportunity for their children, they want it to be as short as possible, and that if people want to find out more, that was up to them, hence the hyperlinks. But the main thing I took back from the travelling community and other children was that if the document's about them, what they need to be able to read it too. So that's why we didn't do a pupil-friendly version, parent version, and a longer version. This is a version for schools to share with their governing bodies and then consult with the children on the same version. So what is in the plan? The plan offers schools the opportunity to set out their stall, and what I've said before, but it's very clear that we need to support schools in being actively inclusive, and we need to support schools that what this looks like in one document that is a statutory document. And the introduction is set out in Appendix A on page 2 to 3. And one of the sentences I think is really important, and I'll read it, is, so not only people of different sexual orientations are welcome in our school, people from different ethnicities, genders, gender identities, religions, ages and abilities are all most welcome. And there isn't a hierarchy, but when we did the consultation, this document will evolve, but we wanted to make sure that the children, young people in our school feel seen, supported and valued. And this plan is supporting that aim, what we want for all of our children. Because what we want to do is make sure that difference isn't just celebrated, but there is a real commitment, a deep-seated commitment to equality and respect in difference. And the two equality objectives in the plan, they are from the Council's Strategic Equality Plan, and it is about improving how we engage, involve and communicate with the protected groups. And I think it's really important to help with the ambition is about addressing the attainment gaps and providing the support to overcome the barriers. Because for me, the second objective about the barriers, we need to provide ladders for our children and young people. And we are aware there are many barriers, but we need to be better at supporting our children and young people to build ladders for others. So with the objectives, there's a particular focus for people with protected characteristics. And then alongside the objectives, there are descriptions of the expected outcomes that are to be achieved. And then alongside that, to support those actions, there is a range of actions that are more appropriate for some schools than the other. And the idea is that the outcomes are fixed, but the actions can be tailored to the school's context. So that's part of the document that schools can tweak. Now, I feel very strongly that we are living in a really exciting yet challenging time for our children and young people. And with the curriculum changes about embedding equality, this plan is an opportunity for schools to be actively and deeply inclusive. So thank you for listening, and I look forward to your comments and questions about this draft plan for schools.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much for that, Martine. Yeah, well, what's good to see is it's a fairly concise document, which is good. And sometimes but I think it really gets the points very, very much across that we need to have. And it'd be interesting to see this coming to the governing bodies and for them having a look at this. I can see I've got one hand raised from the Vice Chairman, Rhiannon.
Thank you for that. That was really interesting. What I wanted to say, a couple of things that it's particularly welcome, bearing in mind that I hope that we will be taking Ukrainian refugees into our schools, and obviously they are going to be other because of language difficulties and so forth, and possibly other difficulties as well. So I think that a policy to have this in place is a really good idea, because it's not enough to have good intentions. Those good intentions need to be written down. They need to be stated so that people can act up to them, rather than just kind of holding them in their hearts, because that is not enough. And I'm really pleased to see this laid out in such detail. What I wanted to ask you is possibly a little bit negative, is whether all schools have been willing to participate wholeheartedly in this. I mean, I know that some schools in particular may want to pay lip service to it because this is the right thing to be seen to be doing. But I want to be reassured that schools are really on board with this and are prepared to carry this out. Because I think that for some of these characteristics, I mean, in particular, the sex, the sexual orientation, the gender reassignment are going to be really difficult for some schools, and that they're obviously that's the kind of thing that parents get really, I'm going to say worried because that's the kindest word, get worried and concerned about. So I wondered if you could reassure me about that, please.
Chair, can I respond to the Vice Chair on those?
Yeah, by all means,
Okay.
yes, please.
To reassure you, in October, November, schools or senior leadership teams in schools were invited to some training as part of the conversation. And the conversations about protected characteristics, gender identities, we started to support schools on resources, whether or not they were for assemblies, whether or not PSC. And so we had some training by a company called No Outsiders. So we started that dialogue with our senior leadership teams across the schools. And what we've done on the back of that as a follow-up is that the resources that were most impactful, they've been provided to schools and they're being used. And to give you an anecdote, I've been training this week, and one of the schools said the children really look forward to Wednesdays because it's No Outsiders Day. And at first I was thinking, oh, you don't just do it in one day. They said, no, that's the assembly that starts the conversations, and those conversations are they're outlined in their school bulletins so that governors and parents are aware that on a Wednesday, sometimes the conversations may be a bit more tricky than others. So we started the conversations in October, but Vice Chair, it's really important for myself as an officer to support the schools that this is an ongoing conversation. So once this goes through due process in the summer term, once it's been translated and we lay it out to schools, it's a process. This isn't something we just do as a council and step away. So are schools engaged? Yes, but it's an ongoing conversation. It's not a full stop once it goes through the relevant processes, and there'll be ongoing support for schools. And it will be dependent on where schools are in their equality journey and their context. So, for example, a Skilladary will have different actions as opposed to a mainstream secondary school in the rural Vale. And for example, as you said about if schools have got more children from Ukraine or other groups, then we would make sure that their strategic equality plan supported those children and their families. So I don't know if I've answered your question, but I've just said where we are as a council.
No, thank you for that. That was reassuring. I mean, my experience is that children themselves are generally fairly open-minded and welcoming and are indignant at the idea that racism should ever happen anywhere or any other form of discrimination. It's normally adults that are the problem in these situations, unfortunately. So no, I think it's good to hear that it's an ongoing process. I would hate to be one of those things where everyone goes into the hall, let's do discrimination today, and then we're going to forget about it for the rest of however many years they spend in compulsory education. So no, I'm very grateful. And I would like to hear, assuming we're here after May, would like to hear kind of, ongoing feedback on how it goes down, because obviously these are the kind of things that need to be tailored over time, because different points will arise and difficulties or concerns will arise that need to be addressed within those conversations. So no, thank you very much. Okay, thank you, Vice Chairman. Yeah, I think we always discover it's always the adults that are problems everywhere, aren't they? Unfortunately, we could perhaps all be more like children. I don't know. Anyway, won't get too much onto that. Right, second contributor, Councillor Thomas. Neil.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, thank you, Martin. It's an excellent document. You've obviously been putting a huge amount of work into this, and I welcome this report. And I'm proud of the sector-leading actions that the Vale is taking in this area. Our GLAM and ethnic minority staff network are becoming increasingly relevant within the organisation and are contributing to our policies and procedures. Some elected members are actively involved as allies, though as yet they are very few on the ground. I'd encourage others to to become more active. Our children with protected characteristics have suffered disadvantage for many years, and it's well past time in the third decade of the 21st century that discrimination and disadvantage is eliminated. As the Strategic Equality Plan observes, our society benefits hugely from our diverse population, but there are still pockets of intolerance and bullying, as Councillor Birch mentioned. They're often based on a lack of understanding or false perceptions. Racism and xenophobia or religious intolerance remains as a barrier to some of our people. Some progress has been made in this area. This needs to go further and should be actively opposed. No one should feel unsafe due to their protected characteristics in schools or elsewhere. And education in schools are fundamental in battling this. What you must remember is that protected characteristics is a term that embraces a wide range of features. And the fight against discrimination must start at an early age so that all our people are equally valued. This is a high-level document, although I'm pleased to see that it's written more in plain English than some documents that come before us. And I just wish that all documents were presented in understandable English instead of corporate jargon. My question is how all this will look in practice in our schools on a day-to-day basis. Thank you.
Okay, what it will look like, it will look different in different schools, because, for example, I would say different school communities are further along the journey than others. So what this looks like, it doesn't look the same and it can't look the same. It's appropriate that we work with schools once we've gone through due process to make it work for their schools and their school communities. And it's not an add-on. So when I talk about it's exciting time for curriculum change, we need to make sure that children and staff are comfortable to talk about racism, sexism. They need to be comfortable to talk about prejudice, because that's the right thing to do. And yes, it's the law, but it is the right thing to do. So what it looks like difficult conversations and equipping staff to have those difficult conversations. And it looks like that when you walk into a school without the children there, you know that school is part of a diverse, inclusive Wales. So what it could look like are role models with disabilities and two mums, two dads, really reflecting the Wales that we live in. So it will look different, but the ambition for this document is that it supports the staff in the schools to support the children to be the citizens we want them to be. I know that was a bit soapbox, but that's the ambition. I feel really privileged to work with the schools I do in the Vale, because their engagement has been really positive when you speak to them on the ground.
Thank you, Martin, and you have my support, and keep up the excellent work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next person to speak, Jane Norman, Councillor Norman.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Martin. Just a quick question. How do you find dealing with schools, especially things like the faith schools, on the gender issues, about sexuality, etc., which a lot of the faith schools have very divided opinion? Do you find that they easily take on board your suggestions, or do you find it more difficult to get through to them, or do you find no problem at all?
I would say at the beginning of my equality journey, especially around 2010, it was really challenging with governing bodies in the faith schools. But I am pleased to say, I won't touch wood, but it feels very much touch wood, that the faith community schools that we have in the Vale are open to have those dialogues, because those children in their school, they have children in their school with two mums, two dads. That's life in Wales. So in terms of challenge, I would say that the faith schools are inclusive, actively inclusive. So at the moment, I would say there isn't that pushback that there was at the beginning of the journey. And what we did to support schools in that journey was we we sat down and spoke to the governing body to have those trickier conversations, and we were really honest that some things were a bit uncomfortable, and especially when we started doing the work with Now Outsiders of how do we make sure that we can have those difficult conversations. And I think it's just keep on talking and providing resources that have been tried and tested to have those conversations that are a bit trickier. So at the moment, no real pushback or concerns from the faith community as yet, but that was just part of the consultation process, Councillor Norman. So I think once this plan is consulted again, once schools are implementing it, then there'll be conversations to be had.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, I was muted there. Cabinet member.
Thank you, Chair. And for Rebecca's benefit, I'm Lisbon and the Cabinet member. I took this report to Cabinet, and so therefore I normally attend scrutiny to cover off any points. I think the first thing I need to do is to pay credit to the amazing work of Martine's team, the rightly called the inclusion team. They have supported the schools and helped them to reach this level, and the level that they have reached is, I mean, I'm very fortunate in having had the ability over the past few years to visit schools whilst we're not in lockdown, and talk to the young people, or even talk to them online as well. And the young people themselves have been actively involved in developing this. When I visited Pencoitra High School not that long ago, and as I walked in, the children all had their copies of this report in front of them and wanted to discuss specific areas of it with me. On the same visit, I met up with their Q&A group, which is their LGBTQ plus group within the school, and had quite an in-depth and no holds barred conversation with them as well, and knowing the way, through our schools council network, etc., knowing the way that the young people have taken this work on, I would hope that there will be opportunities for them to have those discussions with scrutiny committees going forward. I think that they should have a voice within this committee. I mean, unfortunately, we don't seem to have our two representatives. But really, I question whether or not there's any reason why scrutiny couldn't participate in a workshop with young people, because I think that their voice will be hugely informative for the committee. Recently also, St Cyrus was awarded the sort of acclamation of being the first school of sanctuary in the Vale, and again that is to do with the way in which they are a sanctuary. They are a sanctuary for any child and their families within that school, and they work so hard to be a supportive and welcoming environment, and I hope that carries on through other areas as well. So I said this piece of work was one part of it, but I suppose a greater awareness of what each school is doing would probably be very helpful for committee. Anyway, thank you, Chair. I just thought I'd add a few bits in.
Thank you. We have one more speaker I can see. Martin?
I'd just like to echo Martine's response to Councillor Norman about faith schools. My experience is the Catholic schools in the Vale are very inclusive and welcoming, and have worked very closely with Martine to make sure that the sentiments which are in this policy are fully on board with doing that, not just from a not as a sort of tick box exercise, but for really making sure that it's embedded in how the schools work. So I'm very pleased that Martine feels that the faith sector is actually pulling its weight in this.
Okay, thank you, Martin. If there are no other speakers, now obviously I just say this has also been referred to us as part of the consultation process. I've heard nothing negative about this tonight. Everyone seems to be very, very supportive of it. So can I suggest that we have a resolution that we support the draft strategic equality plan for schools, and that we thank Martine for all her hard work and all the hard work of others that have been involved with this. Members happy with that?
Yes,
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, Chair.
Yep. Okay, thank you all very much. Okay.
Thank you, Jock and Val.
Thank you, Martine. Moving on then to the second reference we have tonight, and again another reference from Cabinet, again on the 14th of March, which is an update on Penarth Pier Pavilion and the potential future working arrangements and opportunities for Kimmit, the Kimmit House and Gardens. I think Trevor, this is your matter.
Me again, yeah. Thanks, Chair.
No, you haven't been in yet, so don't worry. So it's your first time tonight, isn't it? So no problem.
Happy days. So you've heard from me a few times over the past year in relation to arts and culture. Way back when, April 2021, we first started the discussion around Penarth Pier Pavilion. We've had a discussion around the changes to the arts and culture strategy. We've had a discussion around Arts Central. And this report is the update for the first year of operation for the pavilion as promised, and then some discussion about what we can do going forward with the Kimmin. This is a catch-all report, so there's reference in here, in addition to the buildings, some of the work that's happened out on the Esplanade and that kind of thing, just to provide a broad update for everybody. Some of this detail will be familiar for you folks, but I'll just run through some of the highlights. The report goes through with the pavilion and talks about the income that we've brought onto the site over the past year, which is at the time of this report about 70k. That's since gone up with some more bookings and events, which is great news. And you'll see from section 2.3 details of some of the different workshops and events that have been hosted there. We ran an event in December, an open day around Christmas time, which was really well attended by folks in the community, and we're looking to arrange some additional open days going forward. Section 2.5 talks about some of the community links with various groups. So some of those are our schools. Some of those are things like local residents associations, local groups like the Dawn Stalkers, who are there at the crack of dawn swimming in the cold water. We've hosted an event for them, for example. So just to give you an idea of some of the new relationships which are being formed there, which is really great. There's also detail about some of the exhibitions that we've had in the gallery space there. Those have been really well attended. We've got a bunch more of those on the books for the coming months as well. I'll come on to those in a bit. The report then talks about some of the other facilities there at the pavilion. So the cinema, as you folks will know, has been brought back into use. So we've got 68 seats there when COVID restrictions or challenges aren't present, obviously. And that's been well attended. There's a mix of different movies and stuff which have been put on there. The space has been used for conferences and those sorts of events, which have been really well attended. We've updated the website in relation to the pavilion. So one of the points of feedback we've had in terms of arts and culture is what we're doing in terms of marketing and communication. So you'll see reference there to penarthpierpavilion.com, which links to all of the events and stuff that we've got hosted there. The report also makes reference to the relationship we have with the council's trading company, which is Big Fresh Catering. They are an anchor tenant that runs out of the Penarth Pier Pavilion. They operate the coffee shop there. which is the main source of income for the pavilion. It's been very much embraced by the community, and I'm very grateful for that. And I have to do the plug. Every coffee that's purchased there, every cake and every sandwich, that money, all those surpluses go back into schools. Last year that was 500k. This year we're looking at something very, very similar. So that's, very, very exciting. The report then goes on to talk about some of the external improvements to the esplanade. So everything from the painting works that's happened. So all of the railings have been redone. The exterior of the pavilion has been repainted. The zebra crossings have been redone. Some highway works have been upgraded there as well. There's also some information about the shelter at the top of the hill towards the cliff tops, and some of the work that's being undertaken to restore that Victorian shelter, which is exciting, as well as some of the new tenancies in the area. So there's reference in this report to Fablas, for example, that are going to be opening up at the top of Cliff Road. So again, that brings some more vibrancy and stuff to the area, which is fantastic. The next section of the report then talks about the Kimmin House and the gardens. It gives an update in terms of what the space is, so the building itself, but also the grounds equally as important, if not more important, the grounds around the building. So this was taken back to the Council's control in April of 2020, and it talks about some of the work that we're looking to do there. So at the moment, we've got a number of community groups who are actively involved, folks like Friends of the Kimmin, for example. Again, I have to say these community groups have been really, really good to work with, obviously really passionate about how we can preserve the space and make it more available to the community. And there's some exciting work on the horizon around that. I think I mentioned in the last scrutiny committee about the outdoor theatre that we're bringing to the Kimmin, for example, which is really exciting, and some of the work we're doing with the tourism team about some of the events we would like to bring to the site going forward. There's some work going on with the site, so the building itself needs quite a few upgrades in terms of making it watertight and upgrading the facilities. There's some ecology surveys that are currently being conducted or soon to be conducted, which will facilitate some of those works. And then it talks about the outdoor grounds. So there are some details about Penarth Growing Community, Friends of the Kimmin, which I mentioned, and how these volunteer organisations are using the site and how we want to support them using the sites going forward. So one of the intentions of this report is to get a steer on that kind of stuff. We're making the building itself and the sheds on the building site as accessible as possible to them, so access to the toilets. We're currently discussing with some other community groups use of the outdoor shelters. There's reference in the report for a tool hire scheme, which is fantastic. And there are some other ideas in terms of how we might look to replicate some of the success we've had with the pavilion to generate an income stream to support the operation and maintenance of that building, which is the tactic that we've taken with the pavilion and the tactic we're looking at doing with Art Central. And so there's reference in there to some of the possibilities, whether we wanted to explore something with an anchor tenant like we do with Big Fresh at the pavilion, and those sorts of things. So these aren't decisions or anything like that. These are things that we're looking to explore with those community groups going forward, and it's just to provide you folks with an update on that. And that's it.
Okay, thank you very much, Trevor. I think we should have heard quite a bit over the months on this, and it's very interesting to hear the information that we're being given. Got one speaker indicated, Neil.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Trevor. Again, thank you for the report. It makes actually gratifying reading now. These facilities stand in my ward, and both are iconic buildings that hold a great significance in Penarth. Since the council took over from the previous loss-making operation in the Pier Pavilion, a six-figure financial deficit has been transferred into, as you said just now, a £70,000 additional income, which has been reinvested into the pier and our schools over and above their budgets. The Kimming House has stood empty for a couple of years now, and the building, which was previously in a poor state due to its age and need for considerable investment to refurbish it, has been subject to a great deal of discussion. Despite this, some development of the Kimming grounds has been ongoing. Well, I'm proud to say, with the involvement of community groups as well. It is now time to move forward with bringing the Kimming House back into public use, and I welcome the direction of thinking that involves a model that is complementary and cooperative with the activities in the Pier Pavilion. Their proximity and clear association produces an obvious synergy, and it's to be hoped that working with the community, we can refurbish it and reopen the Kimming House as soon as possible. But yeah, thank you for the report, Trevor. I'm looking forward to using that. I'll use the pier. Oh, and the other thing is, any members of the committee or anybody online who haven't been to the pier recently, please come, because it really is a delight, and it's functioning beautifully, and we could do with repairs to improve our profits. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Neil. Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member. Well, it's not strictly the Cabinet Member for this, or not all of this anyway, but
I am for the learning bit.
For some of it, yes.
So I'll use that. No.
No problem.
Thank you, Chair. I couldn't be more pleased at the outcomes in relation to the pier, and as I've said many times before, you wouldn't choose the middle of a pandemic to take on a failing building, would you? But we did, and all credit to Trevor and the gang. These results, and it's been officers across the council that have stepped out of their day jobs and contributed their expertise and experience. And so I think the term is virtual teams, isn't it, Trevor? People getting together and actually saying, well, what if? And the pavilion's a really good place to have those what if conversations, to try things out. And it was what if conversations many years ago now that started the spark off in terms of Big Fresh. Many other local authorities outsourced their catering services and now have even bigger deficits that they're trying to cope with, whereas we are operating, Big Fresh is operating at a sizable surplus. That process was actually replicated in terms of the Kimming, that it came back into council use when it didn't have any existing customers or things like that. So we had to work out what it was going to be, what was the best use. You didn't want it to duplicate things that were going on elsewhere in the town, because that would cannibalise their activity and potentially put them at risk as well. So a new way forward had to be done for it, and as a consequence, you've seen the initiatives that are coming forward, very community based but very innovative. And also looking at how it can be sustainable financially going forward, because it's a hard thing to say, but anything that is non-statutory, that is not financially sustainable, is at risk. So it has to be financially sustainable. But I think what we've discovered in working with these two buildings, and then also working as this committee has discussed the whole future of Art Central as well, is actually a model for the arts going forward. And some people who live in the Western Vale might have also seen the regeneration work that's been going on at Old Hall in Cowbridge, which was turning that building and actually bringing it back in partnership with the Charter Trust in Cowbridge. into a super venue. But, you know, the question has to be asked, is there scope using a very similar model for an arts and education facility in the West Vale? Is it something that the West Vale should have as well? And I think that that is something that should also be explored. But I think it is, arts enrich our lives, and you know, never more so than during and following a pandemic have they been so important. And so the more that we can look at developing sustainable and innovative models of service delivery, the more that we can sustain arts within the Vale, and art not only sustain but help it to thrive. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Sandra?
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say, you know, I've sort of read and listened to the different reports on Penarth Pavilion, and I think, you know, if we can have sort of a replica, I know we can't have a pier, but if we can have a replica of that sort of input for the arts and things in Barry, that'll be fantastic. And I think Arts Central, I'm looking forward to what, you know, the Vale can do with that, so that we have a really wide range of arts that's available to everybody and things like that. And I think it's the ideal spot right in the centre of town. It's easy for everybody to get to, either on foot, public transport, or car even. So yeah, I am looking forward to that. And I think, yes, the Western Vale would benefit from something like that. And if we are able to use something like Big Fresh, where we know the profits for that is actually going back in to the Vale, I'd fully support that as well, because that helps, you know, sort of future artists of the Vale with their education and things like that. And, you know, sort of, you don't know who we're going to get. Our art touches everybody's lives, whether you know, they're sort of an artistic inclination or a scientific. Art still touches everybody. There's various different mediums of that. So yeah, I am looking forward to Art Central being up and running. So thank you for the report. It was very interesting.
Okay, thank you for that. Well, I don't know about a pier. They say Wigan had one, or there was rumours of it anyway. So perhaps Barry, we never know. And I was looking a little bit earlier. One of the sort of one of the fine lighters mentioned is the Red Herring Theatre Company is going to have a show there. Well, I hope it's not a forerunner of what the election campaign is going to be, because they're putting on is going to be murder. But hopefully that's not going to be the case. Anyway, sorry, Trevor, I jumped in front of you.
No, that's fine. I'm going to leave you with a bit of a teaser now. So my culture and community manager and I have done some visits, just based on what Sandra was saying, to Arts Central, and there are some really exciting initiatives that are coming forward there. So you haven't heard the last from me in terms of these arts and culture reports. And I guess just to reinforce the point that Liz made, the importance of the arts. I mean, I'm privileged to be working very closely with schools and working very closely with libraries, and the well-being side of things as it relates to arts going forward can't be understated, given the challenges that we're being faced with currently with these young people and families. So it's really exciting. So thank you for your support. The only other thing I would mention, there's a procedural element in there, I guess, and it'd be wrong of me not to mention it. So one of the recommendations is in relation to the operational management of Penarth Pier Pavilion remaining within my portfolio in learning and skills, and that we renew the 12-month license with Big Fresh to stay as the anchor tenant there going forward. So that was endorsed by Cabinet, but just to make reference to that here as well.
Okay, thank you, Trevor. Well, I'm sure we've got no objection to supporting everything, to endorsing what Cabinet has done in this particular case. And obviously, I think going forward, I'm sure the scrutiny would welcome continuing updates.
Yes, Chair.
Yeah, I move support for the recommendations, Chair.
Okay, thank you all very much. I'll second.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Cheers, folks.
Right. Okay, moving along then. Agenda item 6, we've got a presentation on the Curriculum for Wales, the journey to 2022. I know we have some presentations from schools on this as well, which we're sure looking for. Right, everyone suddenly appears. So I don't know whether Councillor Parker's presenting or not, but probably not. Okay, so Caris, are you going to lead off on this? If you stop being muted.
Yes, I'm sorry, yes. I'm going to hand over to Natalie, who will be doing the introductions, Chair. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you, Caris. Thank you, Chair. I'm Natalie Gould. Hopefully you remember me from previous meetings because we've had the privilege of coming to termly meetings at Available Morgan Scrutiny. So I'm actually not presenting today, but I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Kath Lewis. Kath is our Principal Improvement Partner for Curriculum at Central South Consortium. She's going to start us off with a presentation and an update. And then we've got the privilege of 2 of our schools presenting on some of the work that they've been undertaking on Curriculum for Wales. So thank you ever so much, all 3 of you, and I'll hand over to you.
Thank you very much. Lovely to be with you this evening. So as Natalie said, my name is Catherine Lewis. I'm the improvement partner for cohesion and assessment. So curriculum reform sits within my work streams. I was the previous curriculum reform lead for Central South. So the last time that either Natalie or myself will have spoken to you, it was very much about talking about where we were at that point with Curriculum for Wales. And some months ago, we were working with our schools in terms of establishing vision, understanding the defining principles of Curriculum for Wales, getting to know the framework, the guidance, the mandatory elements, the statutory elements, the difference between both. And so what we felt it was important to do today was to set the scene with you so that you can see where we are now with our schools. So we may or may not have shared this previously. In a moment, when I've stopped sharing my screen, I'll pop the links to these in the chat for you. But what we did some months ago was, in order to help our schools with the process of designing their curriculum, we did some research. We worked with Cardiff Met on a model that is used quite widely internationally for lots of different industries. Many architects, graphic designers, other industries use a design thinking model. And what we discovered was that this design thinking model helped distill down the process of understanding users, defining needs, and creating a product. And actually what Curriculum for Wales is asking of our schools is that they create a curriculum, that they design their own curriculum. And even though it's not a product just to be blindly delivered, there's so much more than that. Actually, we are asking schools to build, to develop a product from which, a prototype from which they then trial, evaluate, refine. And so what we did was we took all the guidance that was already out there from Welsh Government, and we aligned it explicitly to the design thinking model. We popped it all in a website, separate Welsh medium and English medium websites, and we made that interactive for our schools. So if you're a member of governing body, you may have found that this is a useful tool for you in understanding where your schools are in terms of their preparedness for curriculum rollout. So at the top of this model, you can see the journey phases. That refers to a piece of Welsh Government guidance that we in the regional consortia, Estyn, we co-constructed with Welsh Government. So it set out some kind of roadmap, a national set of shared expectations of how we get from looking at the Curriculum for Wales framework on Hub to actually then first teaching. So what we did is we used the design thinking model then. It aligned really well to the journey phases. But what we did in this model is we broke down each stage even further. Some schools talk about, well, actually, this is really helpful. I've got almost a tick list that I can say, have I already conducted research to understand my learners, our school context, our staff, our community, our wider stakeholders? Yes, we've done that. Here's evidence of it, and they tick and they move on. So in terms of conversations with wider partners around school development and preparedness for Curriculum for Wales, this is really helping lots of schools. This isn't just an infographic in its own right. Actually, if you look at it on our website, you will be able to click on elements of it. And when you click into perhaps the first stage, you would then find all professional learning opportunities that we've got in CSE that align to any of this level of activity, then that's there for schools. So they don't have to search through our website for things. We're bringing it directly to them. So the last time we spoke, we were looking at this phase. So schools looking at that first steps of establishing their vision, defining their individual and cluster-wide design principles, identifying needs, seeking possible collaborations and support. Whereas now what we're doing is we're moving to the next stage, and some schools are moving at pace now to this next page, which is really developing an understanding of progression to inform that first draft curriculum from which they can trial. So working across schools and clusters, we're looking to identify what should be taught in what order, when and how, and that's really key to these phases of generating the ideas, abiding by the design principles of Curriculum for Wales, and then constructing something at school level or cluster level that gives those specific knowledge, skills and experiences from which our learners then will experience the curriculum. It's really important at this point to point out that Curriculum for Wales offers really broad, high-level principles for schools in designing their own curriculum. So it doesn't indicate the specific knowledge, skills or experiences learners will be taught or exposed to across the continuum. So with this in mind, the task of curriculum design then, of course, is an exciting prospect for schools in terms of creating a curriculum that's befitting their localised context. But it is, of course, daunting then, because the weight of responsibility that lies with schools in selecting what children should know, what they should understand and be able to do, is felt very keenly by school leaders and staff who are already, of course, exhausted from a relentless 2 years with COVID disruption. So without those knowledge, skills and experiences being prescribed at a national level, we no longer have that, you know, we have to do X and Y, and but by the time learners reach year 4, they have to have studied the Romans or the Tudors. That level of specificity has gone. So what we need to do, and we spend a lot of our time looking at how we can support schools to determine the specifics then that will help them identify the curriculum that's appropriate for their learners. So what we need to do is to break it down to support them with professional learning to move forward to create this curriculum. So what we have done at CSC, of course, we've developed close working relationships with a number of schools. In terms of the Vale, we've had high levels of engagement from Vale schools in terms of professional learning opportunities, live sessions that we host, webinars, lots of materials and resources that are accessed on our website. But what we thought is that we would now let, in a few moments, let our schools talk to you directly about their experiences. So we're really fortunate to have Calcutta Primary School with us, and they will share how they've actually used that design thinking model to support their progress in designing their curriculum. And then we've also got Ysgolion Morgannwg, who will talk about the impact to their school of participating in one of our curriculum design programmes. So just to let you know, again, I'll put the link in the chat for you for this. We're always as a team looking at, you know, what the frequently asked questions are, common myths and misconceptions, providing clarity on those in a really timely manner, responding quite quickly to what's coming out of our schools is really important. We know that if we've got a shared language with which we can discuss Curriculum for Wales, that is critical to then it being understood right across the system. So just last week we published our newest range for the spring term, the frequently asked questions that we've got there. So you may find that interesting and helpful yourselves. So I won't go through them one by one, but just to show you an example of the sorts of questions that are in that pack. And what we've done, there's that question or that myth, and then we said exactly what Welsh Government say on each of these points, and we give you a link to exactly where you'll find the source then of that answer. So to constantly directing you back to source. You know, the answers to these myths and misconceptions aren't just what I make up. They're not what we at CSE think to be true. They are then quantified with what the Welsh Government guidance says directly. So you can see a lot of these questions may be questions you have yourselves, or you have heard through schools, through governing bodies. and your work with the local authority. So there are answers to all of those questions and many more in that pack. You will have access to this presentation, and there are a few things that I felt that would be relevant to you that just drew out of our website for you. And then just to share with you in terms of Welsh Government, I know the schools that will speak to you now will no doubt say that they are very much on a journey, that that they're developing and it's taking time. And I think whenever we speak, it's important just to share that Welsh Government in their journey to curriculum rollout guidance do reassure schools that, of course, there are legal thresholds we need to meet. We, of course, need to be able to enact Curriculum for Wales from September for primary schools, and then, of course, whether secondaries opt in from this September 22 or for September 23, but there is absolute understanding across the system that schools cannot have perfected or completed curriculum design. In truth, all curricula have to be kept under review way beyond rollout in September 2022. So what I'm going to do is come away from sharing screen with you now. Oh, there we go. We'll readmit into the room. So I would love to invite Calcutt Primary School to come on, and if they would like to share screen and share with us their approach to the design thinking model.
Thank you. Thank you, Kath, for getting that for me. So I'll run through our curriculum slide. I'm Nia Kuehl, head teacher at Calcutt Primary School. And I've got 2 other PowerPoints as well, so I'm not going to be here all night, just to warn you. So we are on our journey, as already been said. We got together as a leadership team a few months ago, and I did have a bit of a panic moment and said, where is our curriculum? What are we doing with it? With which the leadership team presented me with a huge amount of work that we've been doing, 3 or 4 folders full of work that we've been doing, and we put it all together, and actually now we can see that the process, the journey we've been on has taken us an awful long time, and we've done an awful lot of things, but we are in a good place, we feel, as a school to be delivering the curriculum in the way that it's intended. Thanks, Kath. So actually we started in 2015, which is a long time ago, when the Successful Futures document was introduced to us all as schools, highlighting different parts of that, looking to see what the changes were, listening to lots of presentations by Professor Graham Donaldson back in the day, and seeing how and when we needed to change and what we needed to do. So although we're nearly there now, it's taken us a long time to get to where we are. Thanks, Kath. And during the time, so since 2015, as a team at school, it's got to be a lot of teamwork. It's not one person leading this, it's everybody working together. But as a team, we've asked questions of each other and of others. We've worked really well within our cluster of schools, looking to see what other people are doing, and sort of asking questions to why we're doing these things. And the big question is, it's got to be current, it's got to be relevant for the children, and it's got to be exciting as well for them to want to learn. So we've asked lots of questions. We've done an awful lot of research. Staff have done individual research. We've done group research. We recently linked with Cardiff Met and done some additional research on slowing down pedagogy and looking at different ways of delivering the curriculum. So it's really worked well that our staff have embraced the research and wanted to read and find out more about how we can change what we've always been doing. We tried new things and we've made a few mistakes along the way. We did have a system in school where the staff had a no entry sign on their door. That meant that they were trying something new and I wasn't allowed to go in and see what they were up to, because I think for staff it is a big change and it's taken them a while to feel comfortable with that change. So we've definitely made a few mistakes along the way. We've had a few light bulb moments, and it's true to say we've sat there in some staff meetings and thought, oh, actually, yes, that's what that's about. Because some of the terminology in the new curriculum has taken us a while to get our thinking around that. Words like authentic, what does that mean to everybody? Do we all understand what the words authentic mean? So that took us about 3 or 4 weeks to work that out. So we have had a few light bulb moments. We've also reflected on practice and refined our way of doing things. So we've stopped, we've looked, we've listened. we've taken time to share an awful lot of what we've been doing in the classroom with each other. We've had conversations in the corridors with each other about what's been going on. We've looked to see what other people are doing, and we've definitely listened, not only to what we're doing in our school, but what other schools are doing, but listened a lot to what the children are telling us, how they're enjoying the new way of doing things, which is really lovely. And what we found is really, really important is we've celebrated our successes. So every half term we have a celebration day where the staff bring examples of what they've been doing in their classrooms. We all celebrate together, and it's over the last 2 years been so difficult to get together and meet together. This has been a really good way to share what's been happening in other areas of the school, so people can understand how the work is progressing from the foundation phase through into Key Stage 2. So you'll be pleased to see this next slide. We've used this, thanks Kath, sorry. We've used this design model really well. We did get to a point where we panicked and we said, well, where are we? Are we still at the empathise stage? Surely we can't just be still there. We should be looking at the prototype stage. We should be looking at the test stage by now, surely. So what we did, we took each stage. Thanks, Kath, for the next slide. We took each stage and we looked to see what we've been doing for each one. So for the empathise stage, we looked to see what we've been doing. We looked to see through the folders. We looked through all our, our documents online to see what we'd been doing. So as I said, we started 2015. We've done some action research. The work that we did looking at the 12 pedagogical principles, lots of classroom-based activities on that. The planning for action, the what, the how and the why, all of that helped us tick some boxes on the empathise stage so that we could move on to the next pillar of the design model. Thanks, Kath. And the next pillar is the define model. So again, we sat down, what have we actually done for this, So we've looked at sharing the curriculum for Wales, the journey. We've looked to focus on our vision, looking at our lifelong learners, making sure that we've got a curriculum for all. We've done some really fantastic work with our SIG work, our school improvement group, which is SIG 3, looking at some additional work with our cluster, working with a learning partnership, and lots, as I said, lots of staff research. And we really are working through an inquiry-led learning programme of work at the moment. So lots and lots of things in that define pillar that we had been doing, and looking at how we were planning for the what matters statements as well. I think with the new curriculum, there were so many new areas that we had to think about, the areas for learning, the what matters statements, the progression steps. We really had to take our time to get a really good understanding of what each one of those meant. So that took us quite a time to do that. Thanks, Kath. And then we went on to the ideate column. And again, that was to generate ideas to support high-level curriculum and assessment design. So we engaged with the Central South curriculum communities. We looked at the Central South poster packs. We did some work on researching Priestley and Dylan William. We engaged again with our cluster groups. And we actually did some really good work on whole school curriculum design. So we took a whole school topic, which was growing and cooking food, which is always a winner with children. If you're anything to do with food, they're going to buy into it, and the staff too. So that was really lovely, actually. The cluster work that we did there shared our work with 4 other primary schools, and the whole school topic. Although some staff were quite resilient, opposed to it at first, actually walking through the school and seeing this growing and cooking food topic in the foundation phase developing through into Key Stage 2 was really exciting, and everybody in the corridors was talking about the same thing. They're all talking about food, what we're going to do with it next, how we're going to make it exciting, and there was a definite buzz around the school, and some of the work that the children did out of that project was absolutely amazing. So that then set us on the track of doing whole school topics more regularly, and making them more of a focus of what we were planning. Thanks, Kath. So we're now at the stage, we've got the prototype in place. You'll see a little bit more of that in the next few slides. And we are definitely making sure that every element of the curriculum is being delivered. It's been as exciting as we possibly can get it to be. The children are buying into the curriculum, and the staff are buying into the curriculum as well. So it's really exciting, and it's more or less building every week. Every time I go onto the drive to look to see what the curriculum looks like, you can see that there's changes being made. So the staff are interacting with it on a weekly basis, and it's building into something really, really exciting. As I said, there's going to be tweaks as we go through. What was really important to us as a school was that none of the teaching staff could actually say, oh, we're doing this topic this term, I'm going to go and get that box off my shelf that I've used over the last 3 years, and I've got all my resources ready to go. They're not doing that anymore. We haven't got boxes on shelves with labels on them and resources made. Everybody's starting from scratch, and everybody's making, new resources that they know they're going to have to change next year because a different cohort of children are coming through. So we're really making a programme of work and a curriculum that is bespoke to our group of children that we've got now, knowing that we can move it on for the next group coming through next year. So we've done a lot of work on this. We're really proud of what we've done, and there's lots of elements of it that we know we're going to have to change, but there's lots of elements of it that are really, really successful and that we're happy to share with anybody that would like to come and visit. Thanks, Kath. So we're at the test stage now, as I said, moving forward, looking at some transition activities with our main feeder, our main comp, Pencointra High School. That's really exciting. And as I said earlier, one of the biggest things that we've done is the celebration of learning, and the inquiry team are leading that with us at school. So every term we look at a big question, we look how that big question is developing, and we've shared this with our governing body. They're really excited about the work that's been done. Our improvement partner is definitely involved from Central South as well. So it's really exciting, and it's lots and lots of action research as well. Lots of working parties to see how we can move things forward. So the staff feel that they're getting ownership of the work that they're doing as well. The next step for us is really getting to understand the progression steps, and making sure we work with them properly, making sure that progression step 3, how that looks in the different year groups. And we've got some exciting work with the science and technology team after Easter to look at that with our SIG group as well. Thanks, Kath. And this is where we are now, implementing it. So we haven't got any extra bits on this bit because this is where we are. We're putting our vision into effect. We're looking to adopt the curriculum. We're looking at the assessment arrangements, keeping them under review, and refining the curriculum as we go on. So this is where we are now. And hopefully by the end of the summer term, there will be some extra bits on this slide that we can share with people as well. Thanks, Kath. So we wanted to have some sort of quotes at the beginning of our curriculum, and we took them straight from the Successful Futures because, why not? It's there and that's what we're using. So our children and young people only have a relatively short time at school. We must use that time judiciously and productively to help each one of them grow as a capable, healthy, well-rounded individual who can thrive in the face of unknown future challenges. And that really is what we're trying to do at Calcott. We're trying to give our children the very best opportunities, so they can go out there, they can meet the children from the other schools, and they can compete with those children and be the very best that they can be. Thanks, Kath. And then this is the second quote. This is something that we really do adhere to, is the understanding of why we're doing what we're doing, and how we're going to do it. We do ask the question of ourselves all the time, why are we doing this? And if the answer is, well, I did it last year, it was really good, that's not the answer we're looking for. It's because the children need this. It's where their level of learning, their stage of learning is, and it's what's interesting for them. So we do ask that question, why, an awful lot. And the staff are more than happy when I walk in to a planning session and say, well, why are you doing that then this week? They'll say, well, it's because of this. And I think we do, we have that culture where we do challenge each other, which is really, really positive, and it only makes for the best of the children. Thanks, Kath. So we did this as our designer curriculum. We looked at the why, the how, the what, and the so what. We call it the 4 I's for a successful future. we are looking to sort of link everything together, making sure we've got a broad, balanced, exciting, current, innovative and inclusive curriculum. Thanks, Kath. So this I is the intent and ideology. It's looking at what what our plans are and how we want to move forward, what our ideals are. Thank you. The innovation, looking at the integral skills, the pedagogical principles, the AOLEs, the cross-curricular and cross-cutting themes. Thank you. The implementation, inclusivity. Thank you. And the impact and the evaluation. I couldn't think of another word for evaluation that started with I, so I know I've been a little bit cheeky there, but you know, it has to somehow fit in with the 4 I's to a successful future. So the 4 purposes, looking at our lifelong learners and making sure that our children are ready for the world of work. Thank you. So again, when we were looking at this, we looked at the people that we needed to make sure we had buying into the project and into the work that we were doing. So obviously we needed to make sure the teachers and practitioners were buying in, the families and the community were buying into it, the pupils were buying into it, and also the school leaders. You know, we knew what was going on and we knew what our vision was, and we knew how we were leading the staff forward with this. Thank you. So we took each one of those 4 areas and we looked to see what each of those 4 groups of people needed to be doing in order to be buying into the stages that we were at. Thank you. I won't read all of this because there's lots and lots of detail, but as you can see, it's taken an awful lot of work, lots of consideration of all members of our community, particularly looking at the school children and their involvement in the community as well. Thank you. So that's the 3rd of the 4 I's, innovation, and then the 4th, thank you, is the impact and evaluation. So that's really the sort of the background work. And if we go to the next few slides, you'll see what it actually looks like in real life. So if you can whiz through a few of these to the end, thank you. So this is our biannual and our annual cycle. So we've got short-term inquiries, we've got medium-term inquiries, we've got the outdoor learning that fits all the way through. And the outdoor learning isn't just a trip or a visit once in the topic. We do 3 weeks where the children spend a lot of time either in the forest school, park school, beach school, or the allotment school. Then the ongoing themes that go throughout each of the topics, health and well-being, looking at the PSHE as well. And then we've got the discrete teaching that we also include going through as well. Thank you. Thanks, Kat. And then these are our topics for the medium-term inquiries. So for the humanities throughout the autumn term, then we've got the expressive arts throughout the spring term, and we've got science and technology throughout the summer term. Thank you. And then you can see then how we've mapped out forest school, park school. The Margaret Avenue project is our community link, and that's an allotment plot. And then we've got the beach school as well. So all of this is planned for. Staff know when it's happening, and we've got it all mapped out, ready to go. Thank you. And then if we can go on to, thanks, Kath, if we can look at the Bears project, if that's okay. This is just what it looks like in real life. Obviously, what I've just described to you is the background work and all the paperwork that has to be done. But this is the reality of what it looks like. So this is one of the topics that the young
Nia, I'm so sorry to cut in just a sec, but I'm really conscious of time because I know the chair's got other items. Chair, are you happy for Nia to carry on with the detail of some topics? Or should we draw things there and invite Nia back maybe at a second time? I'm so sorry, Nia. I'm just really conscious of the length of the
That's fine. I did say that there was a lot there. I didn't want to run out things today.
I do.
No. How much longer do you think your presentation is going to take?
There's about 4 slides, is it, Kath, on this one?
About that, yeah.
Yeah, I don't see. I think it'd be a shame to.
Is that okay, Chair? That's okay, as long as you're happy, and then we've got Sarah to come as well. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I'll whiz through this bit. So this is one of the topics they did. We're going on a bear hunt. Thank you. And then you can just see, this is this for me, this is the most important part. This is the children doing the learning and the enjoying, and looking at how we made it as authentic as we possibly could. And these are our youngest children in the school engaging in the project. Thank you. looking at how we engaged our topic with a hook at the beginning, how we made it as exciting as we possibly could, and looking at some of the thinking routines that even our youngest children are doing. So think, puzzle, explore. So, you know, they have to really engage with the project. They have to really understand how their learning is moving forward. Thank you. And then we looked at some of the thinking routines again. We did the 8 facts project that we were running as well, looking at the thinking routines, looking at the, as I said, the inquiry-led learning. And again, that's some of the work that they were doing. All of this is live work on the wall, so that we don't have the old-fashioned display boards anymore. We had double backing. You know, this is very much a living, walking wall as you go through the school. Thank you. And then we've got the end, then we've got the ethical citizens, the ambitious, capable learners. Thanks, Kath. Ethical informed citizens, just to see how we were making sure that we're looking at all the 4 core purposes of the new curriculum. Thank you. Healthy, confident individuals. And then the last one, we've got the enterprising creative contributors. So that's the real life for me. Really, for me, this is the most important part, if I'm honest, seeing the children engaging in their learning and enjoying their learning. That's what it's all about for us at school. So that's it. Thank you. That's the end. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. And sorry if you felt you had to rush a little bit at the end there, but
I'm so sorry, Nia. I know there's
okay,
so
don't worry.
much I want to say and celebrate. I'm just so conscious of the meeting length. So thank you so much.
No, I think people do feel it's important that they share everything with us, and you know, people put so much work into this. So I think on that basis, we'll cut out the next presentation entirely, shall we? No, only joking.
No.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so thank you so much, Nia. It's really helpful. Obviously, Nia was able to share with us how that design thinking model is supported, but a really balanced approach as well, with using different professional learning models across the piece, really. But definitely lovely to see what it actually looks like then for learners on the ground. So thank you to Nia. And so we've recently responded to lots of schools requesting support with progression in Curriculum for Wales. So that looking at what sits beneath those topics and those activities in terms of what are those knowledge, skills, experiences, the concepts, the things that we're going to plan and sequence in learning across the continuum. So we worked with, we engaged with some experts in curriculum design, but some in Wales, some outside of Wales, and with the other regions then, professional learning consortia groups, we created a cross-regional programme supporting teachers with curriculum design, and all schools across Wales were able to express an interest to be part of the programme. I know Sarah's going to tell you about the programme now, but it was a programme that teachers were funded to be part of, and they were exposed to lots of professional learning around curriculum design, some of which Nia has already talked about within her presentation, and then as part of really exemplifying the process to take in the abstract framework down to the concrete, what it might look like at a cluster level, then those groups were also then exemplified with identifying progression maps in subjects and disciplines, so that schools could have a sense of what progression might look like at its highest level. So we'd asked Ysgolion Morgannwg, because they were part of that programme, if they'd like to share with us why they became part of the programme, what they learned through it, and then the so what, how is it helped them back within their school and their cluster. So I'll hand over to you, Sarah.
Thank you, Kath. Just share my screen. Okay, good evening all. My name is Sarah Tidder and I am a teacher at Ysgolion Morgannwg, a Welsh medium primary school in Cowbridge. I am the lead practitioner for mathematics and numeracy. Following the work we had completed on understanding our school context, the 4 purposes, pedagogy, vision and values, we began to develop our work on the 6 areas of learning and experience, beginning with mathematics and numeracy, and also languages, literacy and communication. Our work began unpicking what the learning descriptions meant and discussing possible non-negotiables for the knowledge, skills and experiences that we would plan. It soon became apparent that this was an overwhelming task. We engaged in curriculum design professional learning programmes with CSC and with the areas of learning and experience network meetings that they had offered, but found the more we knew, the further away from completion we were. We realised it wasn't a matter of reorganising topics or activities, but a much deeper, thoughtful approach to designing a bespoke curriculum. How are we going to go from the framework, an abstract document, to a school curriculum? Even more importantly, how are we in Wales, with over 1,400 schools, going to move from that framework to school level curricula without losing the continuity, coherence and equity for all? When the opportunity arose to engage with the cross-regional curriculum design programme, we applied for it. It required release of a teacher for 12 days between December and March, which was obviously not an easy task due to COVID disruptions at school level. But we felt any work we could do to progress our own understanding of curriculum design, whilst contributing to the creation of subject-specific progression maps for use by all teachers across Wales, would be a worthy time investment. As my personal expertise is in mathematics, we applied to be part of the mathematics and numeracy group. This meant that in addition to the general professional learning input we would receive on curriculum design, I would also be working with a group of mathematics teachers to co-develop progression frameworks for learning in maths. Within the programme, we had professional learning input from experts within and outside of Wales. That varied input not only gave me a chance to develop understanding within my area of learning, mathematics and numeracy, but also a chance to deepen understanding of the background theory and principles needed to understand the Curriculum for Wales framework. Although an aspiration of Curriculum for Wales is for more connected learning with links made within and across areas of learning and experience, the programme recognised the importance of first establishing what progression in disciplines looks like before meaningful connections can be made across a curriculum. Although each school is able to choose its content for the curriculum, because there are no knowledge, skills or experiences prescribed within the areas of learning, the selection of those knowledge, skills and experiences can be problematic. At Ysgoliolo, we had many discussions about which concepts, knowledge or skills we should plan for, in what level of detail, in what order, and then also which may not be included. After all, it's not possible to teach everything. In this regard, we found the discussions in practitioner groups over what high-level progression looks like in disciplines hugely helpful. This quote from the Curriculum for Wales guidance states, as learners progress, they should have greater opportunities to engage with different disciplines and to specialise within them. As a nursery teacher, I wouldn't be teaching my curriculum in separate disciplines. Determining at which point we might teach a discipline discretely would be based on what is developmentally appropriate for children and largely related to what the learning intention is trying to achieve. But understanding progression in disciplines and mapping that across the continuum gives a starting point for knowing how to provide appropriate next steps for children when they need it. As a maths specialist, I understand what that may be in maths, but I don't necessarily know what that may be for music or chemistry, for example. As a result of the cross-regional programme, we have worked with over 100 teachers across Wales to create progression maps for each discipline, something practitioners across Wales can choose to use as a supporting resource when designing their own curriculum. Hearing from teachers across Wales and from subject experts has given us assurance and confidence to know that the knowledge, skills and experiences that we select and sequence across Ysgoliolo is aligned to an accepted national view of progression and developed by teachers in Wales for teachers in Wales. We at Ysgoliolo may use different contexts and activities to the schools across our cluster, but fundamentally, as a result of participation in this programme, we have been able to deepen our knowledge and understanding of progression to benefit the learners of our cluster. So here are my takeaways from involvement in this programme. Following the curriculum design process has given myself the assurance and confidence, as I said, that I needed to share, create and develop designing a curriculum within my own school and across the cluster. I have held staff meetings sharing my experience of the curriculum design programme, and as a result my school has also released me to meet with other areas of learning leads to develop progression maps for these areas. The initial workshops covering designing a curriculum has allowed me to use these principles to design these other maps within other areas. The cluster have also benefited from the process, as during our PLC meeting in February, I was able to share with them resources from the design programme, but also my own mathematics progression map for discussion, one that I had completed following this programme. Every school's map may be slightly different, a different format, for example, but ensuring cooperation on these skills, on the skills, knowledge and experiences within the cluster will ensure they are well sequenced. These sequence maps will then support schools in bringing to life the learning in the classroom in the most exciting ways. And that is the best part. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. So just to finish, just to say thank you ever so much to Kath, who obviously set the context of some work we've been undertaking at Central South to support all schools across the region, including all the schools in Vale of Glamorgan, and then just two approaches there that is so lovely to see and to celebrate on some fantastic work going on in schools, and it's going on in many schools across Vale of Glamorgan, across the region and across the whole of Wales. But two slightly different approaches, two different schools have engaged with us in different ways with different projects, but ultimately children at the heart, the four purposes at the heart, and making really good progress, ready for rollout in September 2022.
Okay, well, thank you all very, very much for that. We've heard so much about this perhaps over the last year. It's interesting to get a bit more sort of flesh on the bones, as it were, and be able to look at this and hear about this in more detail. So again, thank you all very, very much for your contributions. I'm sure all the members of the committee have been most appreciative of that. Right. Agenda item 7, any urgent items? I don't have any. Part 2, there aren't any items, which now brings us to the end of this meeting. It's obviously the last. Sorry?
Chair, sorry, can I very quickly just ask, can we, as a recommendation, note the presentation?
Oh, sorry, yes, beg your pardon. Yes, we should. Yes, sorry, even though it was a presentation, we should note the presentation and note all the hard work that's got into this, and thank everyone for their contributions. Okay.
Yes,
right.
I'd like to promote that. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Sorry for jumping ahead of things. Right. Okay. As I say, it's the last meeting of this council. There'll be elections in I think 4 weeks today. So who knows what the composition of this scrutiny committee or the council generally will look like in 4 weeks or so's time. So can I take the opportunity as chair of this committee to thank all members for their contribution over the last 12 months, and thank you particularly to Rhiannon for her contribution as vice chairman. So thank you all very, very much for your contributions. I'm not going to say anything by saying whether, looking forward to seeing members back in next month, but we will see. Can I just mention one other thing while as we come to the end of this meeting? Throughout this year and in previous years, Kath has very ably supported this committee. She has contributed a lot to this, particularly with that long-running saga of the task and finish group. But unfortunately, this committee will have to, and the council will have to do without Kath's contributions from now on, because she's obviously too young to retire, but she's moving on to, well, I'm sure she will think better things, but how anyone could actually go on to better things other than the Vale of Glamorgan Council, I find it hard to understand. But no, seriously, I'm sure all members of the committee and all officers supported would like to thank Kath for her hard work during this time. Yes, I can see thumbs up from Trevor, and I'm sure that's going to be the case from everyone else. So are you there, Kath?
I am. Thank you very much, Chair and committee and officers. That's very, very kind, and it's been a great committee to work for, as well as the directorate as well. So thank you.
Okay, well, I hope you, as I say, your move is successful, but no doubt in years to come you'll be coming back and taking over the Vale Council, I'm sure. May well be a vacancy for chief executive in due course.
We'll see. Thank you very much.
We'll see. Okay, right. Again, well, thank you all very much. Thank you for your attendance tonight.
Thank you, Chair. Good luck, Kath.
Yes.
Yes. Good luck, Kath.
Best wishes,
Good
Kath,
luck,
and all
everybody.
success.
Yes.
I have to go
Yes.
now. I've got Penarth Town Council. Thanks very much, everyone. Good
Good
night.
night,
Okay, then.
good night
All the
everyone.
best. Thanks.
Good night.